Welcome, everybody. Today is April 28th, 2021. It is Wednesday, and we are just plugging away, taking it one day at a time and traveling through the great story of the Bible. I mean, really, what other book has so much drama and rebellion, which we're going to read about today? Remember yesterday I told you that David's kingdom, we are in 2 Samuel, and David's kingdom is just on a slow decline. We're just seeing how the Lord is still with him, but they don't seem to be following God as devotedly as they did before. So today we're going to read about a rebellion that's going to happen against King David and how he responds. And we're going to see God really still be faithful to King David even after everything that has happened. And that, my friends, is the God we serve. He's faithful to us even in a time where we don't deserve that. We don't deserve what we are being given, and that is called mercy. So let us see this true depiction of God's great mercy and his grace to King David in today's reading. My name is Bria Doan. This is Fit Your Ministries, and we are going to be traveling through 2 Samuel again today. And like yesterday, this is so exciting, but we don't have any jumping around today, not even one bounce to 1 Chronicles. So without further ado, we are in 2 Samuel, starting with chapter 15. Let's get going. In the course of time, Absalom provided himself with a chariot and horses and with 50 men to run ahead of him. He would get up early and stand by the side of the road leading to the city gate. Whenever anyone came with a complaint to be placed before the king for a decision, Absalom would call out to him, "What town are you from?" He would answer, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "Look, your claims are valid and proper, but there is no representative of the king to hear you." And Absalom would add, "If only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or case could come to me, and I would see that they receive justice." Also, whenever anyone approached him to bow down before him, Absalom would reach out his hand, take hold of him, and kiss him. Absalom behaved in this way toward the Israelites who came to the king, asking for justice. And so he stole the hearts of the people of Israel. At the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, "Let me go to Hebron and fulfill a vow I made to the Lord. While your servant was living at Jeshurun in Aram, I made this vow. If the Lord takes me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron." The king said to him, "Go in peace." So he went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent secret messengers throughout the tribes of Israel to say, "As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpets, then say, 'Absalom is king in Hebron.'" 200 men from Jerusalem had accompanied Absalom. They had been invited as guests and went quite innocently, knowing nothing about the matter. While Absalom was offering sacrifice, he also sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, David's counselor, to come to Gilo, his hometown. And so the conspiracy gained strength, and Absalom's following kept on increasing. A messenger came and told David, "The hearts of the people of Israel are with Absalom." Then David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us and bring ruin on us and put the city to the sword." The king's officials answered him, "Your servants are ready to do whatever our lord the king chooses." The king set out with his entire household, following him, but he left 10 concubines to take care of the palace. So the king set out, with all the people following him, and they halted at the edge of the city. All his men marched past him, along with the Kerethites and Pelethites, and all the 600 Gittites who had accompanied him from Gath marched before the king. The king said to Ittai the Gittite, "Why should you come along with us? Go back and stay with King Absalom. You are a foreigner, an exile from your homeland. You came only yesterday, and today shall I make you wander about with us when I do not know where I'm going? Go back and take your people with you. May the Lord show you kindness and faithfulness." But Ittai replied to the king, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, wherever my lord the king may be, whether it means life or death, there your servant will be." David said to Ittai, "Go ahead, march on." So Ittai the Gittite marched on with all his men and the families that were with him. The whole countryside wept aloud as the people passed by. The king also crossed the Kidron Valley, and all the people moved on toward the wilderness. Zadok was there too, and all the Levites who were with him were carrying the Ark of the Covenant of God. They set down the Ark of God, and Abiathar offered sacrifices until all the people had finished leaving the city. Then the king said to Zadok, "Take the Ark of God back into the city. If I find favor in the Lord's eyes, he will bring me back and let me see it and his dwelling place again. But if he says, 'I am not pleased with you,' then I am ready. Let him do to me whatever seems good to him." The king also said to Zadok the priest, "Do you understand? Go back to the city with my blessing. Take your son Ahimaaz with you, and also Abiathar's son Jonathan. You and Abiathar return with your 2 sons. I will wait at the fords in the wilderness until word comes from you to inform me." So Zadok and Abiathar took the Ark of God back to Jerusalem and stayed there. But David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and he was barefoot. All the people with him covered their heads too and were weeping as they went up. Now David had been told, "Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom." So David prayed, "Lord, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness." When David arrived at the summit, where people used to worship God, Hushai the Archite was there to meet him, his robe torn and dust on his head. David said to him, "If you go with me, you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, 'Your Majesty, I will be your servant. I was your father's servant in the past, but now I will be your servant,' then you can help me by frustrating Ahithophel's advice. Won't the priests Zadok and Abiathar be there with you? Tell them anything you hear in the king's palace. Their 2 sons, Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, and Jonathan, son of Abiathar, are there with them. Send them to me with anything you hear." So Hushai, David's confidant, arrived at Jerusalem as Absalom was entering the city. When David had gone a short distance beyond the summit, there was Ziba, the steward of Mephibosheth, waiting to meet him. He had a string of donkeys saddled and loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 cakes of raisins, and 100 cakes of figs, and a skin of wine. The king asked Ziba, "Why have you brought these?" Ziba answered, "The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on, the bread and fruit are for the men to eat, and the wine is to refresh those who become exhausted in the wilderness." The king then asked, "Where is your master's grandson?" Ziba said to him, "He is staying in Jerusalem because he thinks today the Israelites will restore me to my grandfather's kingdom." Then the king said to Ziba, "All that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours." "I humbly bow," Ziba said. "May I find favor in your eyes, my lord the king." As King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Saul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera, and he cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all the king's officials with stones though all the troops in the special guard were on David's right and left. As he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you shed in the household of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has given the kingdom into the hands of your son Absalom. You have come to ruin because you are a murderer." Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and cut off his head." But the king said, "What does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? Is he cursing because the Lord... If he is cursing because the Lord said to him, 'Curse David,' who can ask, 'Why do you do this?'" David then said to Abishai and all his officials, "My son, my own flesh and blood is trying to kill me. How much more then this Benjamite? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord has told him to. It may be that the Lord will look upon my misery and restore to me his covenant blessing instead of his curse today." So David and his men continued along the road, while Shimei was going along the hillside opposite him, cursing as he went and throwing stones at him and showering him with dirt. The king and all the people with him arrived at their destination exhausted, and there he refreshed himself. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel was with him. Then Hushai the Archite, David's confidant, went to Absalom and said, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" Absalom said to Hushai, "So this is the love you show your friend? If he's your friend, why didn't you go with him?" Hushai said to Absalom, "No, the one chosen by the Lord, by these people, and by all the men of Israel. His I will be, and I will remain with him. Furthermore, whom should I serve? Should I not serve the son, just as I served your father? So I will serve you." Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your advice. What should we do?" Ahithophel answered, "Sleep with your father's concubines, whom he left to take care of the palace. Then all Israel will hear that you have made yourself obnoxious to your father, and the hands of everyone with you will be more resolute." So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and he slept with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Now in those days, the advice of Ahithophel gave was like that of one who inquires of God. That was how both David and Absalom regarded all of Ahithophel's advice. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "I would choose 12,000 men and set out tonight in pursuit of David. I would attack him while he is weary and weak. I would strike him with terror, and then all the people with him will flee. I would strike down only the king and bring all the people back to you. The death of the man you seek will mean the return of all. All the people will be unharmed." This plan seemed good to Absalom and to all the elders of Israel. But Absalom said, "Summon also Hushai the Archite, so we can hear what he has to say as well." When Hushai came to him, Absalom said, "Ahithophel has given this advice. Should we do what he says? If not, give us your opinion." Hushai replied to Absalom, "The advice Ahithophel has given is not good this time. You know your father and his men, they are fighters and as fierce as the wild bear robbed of her cubs. Besides, your father is an experienced fighter. He will not spend the night with the troops. Even now he is hidden in a cave or some other place. If he should attack your troops first, whoever hears about it will say, 'There has been a slaughter among the troops who follow Absalom.' Then even the bravest soldier, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will melt with fear. For all Israel knows that your father is a fighter, and that those with him are brave. So I advise you, let all Israel from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sands on the seashore, be gathered to you, with you yourself leading them into battle. Then we will attack him wherever he may be found, and we will fall on him as dew settles on the ground. Neither he nor any of his men will be left alive. If he withdraws into a city, then all Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we will drag it down to the valley until not so much as a pebble is left." Absalom and all the men of Israel said, "The advice of Hushai the Archite is better than that of Ahithophel, for the Lord has determined to frustrate the good advice of Ahithophel in order to bring disaster on Absalom." All right. Wow. Okay. So David's son has completely rebelled against his father, the king, But we see David respond twice in this reading today with a composure of, I don't really know what the word is I'm looking for here, but he was just very gracious and patient. And the first was when Shimei, it's in 2 Samuel chapter 16, verses 5 through 13, we find Shimei throwing stones at David and all of those that were marching with him. And although David really had no part in Saul's death, so this really was unfounded anger towards David, David allowed it, and he just kind of quietly walked on by, didn't allow any of his soldiers to hurt the man, and just allowing God to be in that moment and allowing him to have the time to just vent, right? to show his anger and displeasure with King David, and without any kind of retribution from King David. The other instance where we see David's patience and grace is he actually leaves Jerusalem. Now, at the onset, you can be like, oh my gosh, the king is leaving. The king is fleeing from his son Absalom. If King David had stayed, it most likely would have been his death and perhaps a destruction to Jerusalem, as Absalom would have fought him in that city. So he escapes Jerusalem and flees to another area so as to protect Jerusalem from any kind of damage, and also the other people that lived in Jerusalem. Now, he did leave 10 of his concubines behind, and we see that Ahithophel, remember David prayed to God and said, allow his advice to be foolish. And although God did not like some of the choices King David made, he still answered that prayer. And Ahithophel says, go sleep with your dad's concubines. Now, this is a prophecy that was fulfilled in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 11 through 12. We read that another man would sleep with David's wives. And so this allows the fulfillment of that. And we end this reading today with Hushai coming and encountering Ahithophel's advice. Now, Ahithophel was saying, let me go and fight David. And Hushai says, no, I think Absalom, you need to be at the forefront. And how he kind of gets Absalom to agree is by just tapping into the vanity of Absalom. He just gives him praise and flattery, and Absalom is like, that's right, I am amazing. And that is his demise. Like, that was his demise at the front of the gates when he was trying and succeeded in winning the hand of people. He just really used his good looks and his charm to win people over. And we have people in our government that do this, and Absalom ends up being an evil ruler and just really not wanting to advance Israel. He wants to advance his own desires, fleshly desires. So, we just see this continuing spiral. And unfortunately, we're going to see it continue throughout the rest of 2 Samuel until there is a new king crowned in Israel. So, Father, thank you for this word today. Thank you for the vision of what life is like without you at the helm. Allow us to see the chaos and destruction that abounds when we don't have you at the center, God. God, we want your peace. We want your love and your faithfulness. And we know that that comes with obedience. It comes with sacrifice of our fleshly desires and turning them into obedience to what you desire from us, God. And it's so anti what our society is, what our society says. And there are times that we look foolish in following your ways. And God, just help us to have the resolve that we would rather be foolish in obedience to you than look upright to society, to the world around us, because their ways are not upright 100% of the time. But we know that your ways are, God. And when we follow you, when we are obedient to you, our ways are upright. So help us to stay and stand straight, to stand firm in who you are and whose we are. And that with you, all the taunting and kind of judgment that may come from people can just bounce right off us, flow right off us, because we know that we are doing what you want us to do. And that is what matters. We love you. We praise you. We worship you. And we want your ways, your will above ours. It is in your name we pray. Amen. Friends, I wish you a most wonderful and amazing day today. May it be blessed. May you find peace and prosperity today. And until tomorrow, where I will see you right back here on Fit Your Ministries. My name is Bria Doan, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.